Welcome, dear viewer. So I feel kind of stupid because I just had an epiphany that I could begin the drawing process and then just do the introduction beforehand without extending the video unnecessarily with a welcoming animatic. And so that's what I'm doing. So this is the beginning of my series, which I'm glad that I can start, where I will be making a comic literally from the drawing board. I have some ideas, but yeah, I've never done this before, and basically by the end, and it'll be a while, I'm very sure, I'm hoping to make it into a webcomic at least, which would be cool. So yeah, so this is a futuristic kind of cyberpunk western setting. Not the most original thing in the world, but I have some ideas that I think will be really cool. So for my first character, his name is the Traveler, and the setting is very bright, and so he's got to have sunglasses. Plus, I feel like with cyberpunk, you have to have sunglasses. So I sketched out a couple of hats, and I chose that design, as you might have seen a couple of the other ones, because I like the angled up look and slightly faded. I was deciding whether to give him a face handkerchief or not, but decided not to. Okay, so one thing I'll say about this character is that he loses like his clothing gets like torn and the outer layers get scattered throughout to kind of show his battle and his psychological descent. So I wanted to create multiple layers, so I was deciding whether to give him a poncho or like a sort of outer coat or duster. And so this was just me sketching out some ideas, and I chose the design that looks like claw marks, because he's been biologically enhanced and uses, I guess you could call them his powers, even though he was given them. Well, I mean, I guess a lot of powers were created in lab accidents, so it doesn't really negate what it is. But yeah, so I actually do like this duster design, and I might reuse it for a different character, but for the sake of this one, or for the sake of the Traveler, I did stick with a poncho, and I decided to simplify it and make it a lot more angular and triangular. To fit the character, he's like pretty wild. He becomes more deranged as the story goes on, and I thought that would be a good fit. But I thought it'd be a little bit too much if I gave him triangular sunglasses. It just didn't super fit. So I finally decided to kind of do a simple body wireframe underneath, so that I can actually do things to scale. And I do it kind of poorly. I mean, I redo the leg proportions in particular a couple of times, because I have a bad habit of drawing the legs to where they're the same length or even shorter than the arms, which doesn't look amazing. I mean, in certain shots it's not super obvious, but I could definitely tell. But you know, I mean, this is the very beginning of the process, and so I'd hope if at any point I could be forgiven, it would be this point. So yeah, next is his shirt. I didn't do multiple designs for this one because I was just doing a streamline. He has a very thin body shape. He barely has a chest at all, so he almost has an androgynous kind of look in that way. But yeah, just like tight fitting, long sleeves, almost no skin, or yeah, no skin except for his face shows in the very beginning. But then, as I mentioned before, his clothes get more torn up and thrown to the wayside as the story goes along. And I guess I'm not sure how much I want to reveal from the beginning, but the setting is basically there's a singular mega city that's kind of a hub, in this largely lifeless world as far as we see. And so it's just covered in desert and glass. And there's a large area, there's a large area in particular where it's just this huge plain of glass that the traveler has to traverse. And I'll draw it later, but I was thinking motorcycles because it's like, oh, that's cool. It's kind of like Akira, that kind of feeling to it. But and I changed around some of the colors for the better. And so I was working that in, so I make it a lighter blue so that the outer layers of clothes can stick out from the inner frame, which I should have done earlier. But live and learn. But with a desert setting, I kind of like the idea of having like more hover vehicles and almost boats. So I draw his vehicle at the end of this video, where I give it kind of a canoe look, and I can describe that a little bit when that happens. But yeah, so he's a kind of a generic clothing design. Like I give him a pistol, and then that comes into play in the story, and he also has a knife with a ring on the handle so that he can swing it and flip it around. He does all these crazy tricks with it because his main draw or capability is his transforming capabilities. That he's been biologically altered, and he carries around constantly with him in his little boat the basically experimental vials. And so as the plot progresses, it's kind of a question of whether he is going insane or whether it's altering the chemistry in his brain or whether that's just mirroring his own psychological descent. Fun stuff is basically what I'm saying. So while there is something to his design as far as cowboys go, it's a little bit bare bones. Because that's what I want to do with the boots. I really didn't like the first design I did, but I was going to do a couple ones and make them more cowboy-like, but I kind of liked the idea that I did next, where they look more like combat boots. Because it adds to a little bit an anachronicity, because, this does occur in the quote-unquote future. It's not really Earth, but it basically is, because, they focus on humans and everything. But just the clash of the future things with the kind of Western style, because of the storytelling that I do. But yeah, so I've lost track of myself a lot. So yeah, so there's a large plane of glass, and so I used to go get gear where it's like heat proof, because it can act as a giant magnifying glass, and I used to get like really intense sun reflective gear and all that kind of stuff when he's hunting someone down. And there's just this vast area of lifeless desert, and then one mega city where the wealth is concentrated basically to a ridiculous extent under a single moniker, which is kind of par for the course with cyberpunk. That's just this corporation with an obscene amount of power. And this story, it is satirical, but I'd say that if I was really working on it as a satire, then I would really work on the conceit. But I'd say this is more like fun, like it's a kind of a dark humor kind of aspect, with a few scenes where I take the action more seriously. It's kind of the feeling that I'm going for. But yeah, so here I'm drawing his little canoe. So it's propelled by a fan, and it's actually generated by him cycling. So, because I thought that would be kind of funny. So he's just cycling to propel his boat along through the desert. And yeah, and he, in his back, the back to his seat is a sealed container of experimental serum that he stole so that he can have shape-shifting capabilities. And obviously, when I get to the actual plot, and I'll go more into that, and I made the front a banana because I wanted there to be some sort of figurehead to it. But then I decided that I kind of wanted it to be goofy, as a little bit of a show and a little bit of character. But yeah, so that's what I got right now, and I'll be back in the next episode of the series. A special thank you to my patron, Druven Kitty, the Abyss Acolyte. He answered one of my polls for what I should do next for my next art video, and he chose character creation. So I had a lot of fun with this, and I'm glad I got to start this series because I'd been wanting to do that for a little bit. Thank you for watching the video. If you're still here, please give it a like if you liked it. Comment something you'd like to see in the future. If you'd like to see this series continue, I mean, I'll continue the series anyway, but you can comment if you want, and subscribe if you'd like to see any future content. I do a bunch of stuff. I'll be continuing this series, and I do other kinds of art. And thank you for watching. Until next time.